Hey there, welcome to your weekly astrology forecast for the week of July 20th through the 26th. So this week we will talk about a new moon in Cancer that's happening on Monday. We'll talk about the sun immediately moving into the sign of Leo. And we'll also talk about an aspect of Mercury to Uranus. So as always, I'm excited to share this week's astrology with you. If you are joining me live, let me know that you can hear me and where you're tuning in from. And if you have questions, whether, again, you're watching live with me or if you're watching the replay, leave me a question, leave me a comment, or simply let me know how things are resonating for you and how you're doing. All right, So we start off the week with a new moon in Cancer, and this is special because this is our second new moon in Cancer this year. So typically it doesn't happen. Typically the lunations move around the zodiac in order. So typically we would have a new moon in Cancer, and then a new moon in Leo the next month, and then a new moon in Virgo the next month, and same with the full moons. They go in order of the zodiac. However, it often happens where there is one sign that gets a double. So this particular year, it happens to be Cancer that gets a double lunation. So even more important because the previous new moon in Cancer last month was an eclipse, and a solar eclipse. So we're getting a lot of Cancerian energy this season. So new moon in Cancer happens on July 20th at 10:32 a.m. Pacific time. It's happening at 28 degrees of Cancer. And this is, so let's break down what this is and then we'll talk about the aspects. So new moon is a time of being ultimately like very inward, very reflective. It is the point of going into the darkness, going into the void, going into a place of stillness inside of you. And so typically when we have a new moon period, physical energy is a little bit lower because everything is pulled inside. So the moon is a symbol of emotions. The sun, which sun and moon together create a new moon, right? So the sun is a symbol of your spiritual energy, that which animates you at a personal level. Some people would call it the soul. It's also in Hellenistic astrology said to be a symbol of the intellect. We can think of the sun as ego or willpower. So the emotions and the willpower come together and they meet. And so we can think about this as an alignment of emotions and will when there is a new moon. Now, this happening in the sign of Cancer means that we want to look at Cancerian energy, what that means. I want to say hello to everyone. Hi, Ethel. Hi, Mama May. Hi, Beckers. Hi, Adrian. Hi, Elisa. Good to have you here. So Cancer in the zodiac is a cardinal sign, which is about initiation, starting new things, moving forward. So we have cardinal, fixed. Cardinal is initiation, fixed is sustaining, growth, developing on that which was initiated, and then mutable or double-bodied signs, which are about change and transition of that process. Now, we have two layers here, with new moon being about going inward and starting the moment of moving forward. Hi, Jeffrey. Hi, Exlo. Hi, George. And then, so we have that initiatory kind of vibe here going on with this moon. And then Cancer is, of course, a water sign as well. So water is about the relational and emotional parts of ourselves. So I think that's important to realize that water is not just about emotions and intuition. Yes, it is about those things, but it's also about how it is that we connect together. It's about how it is that we merge. In ancient astrology, when something was said to be moist or wet or having the element of water, there was this cohesion that happens. And so we have these elements around emotional connection and starting something new with this particular new moon. So what does all that mean in practical terms? So new moon in Cancer, I would of course want you to look at your own personal birth chart and see where this is happening in the context of your life. That being said, when we're looking just at this energy at a more collective level, new moon in Cancer is a time of new emotional beginnings, like kind of like turning over a new leaf emotionally, being able to have a greater ability for emotional connection or emotional availability, having a sense of seeing and feeling yourself in a more objective way, or maybe a more subjective way. So Cancer is known for being more subjective, and I think that there's a way to work with this energy. I see a lot of people presenting Cancer as overly emotional, overly sensitive as an energy. And I think that is the downside or the challenging side of Cancerian energy and even this new moon in Cancer. So we want to watch out, especially this weekend and Monday. We want to watch out for getting lost in our own story and getting lost in an emotion that is not helpful. And ways that we can do this are to ground ourselves, are to realize that what it is that you're feeling right now may feel like the most important thing, and it may feel like very all or nothing, but oftentimes it is not. A way to judge this, to kind of like take your emotional temperature, so to speak, is to look at if you're thinking in all or nothing mindset. Like if you're finding yourself telling yourself, if you're like stressed and you're like, oh, like it's always this way, this always happens to me, or always or never, like if those two words are in your storyline and your conversation to yourself, we know that there's kind of like a whirlwind of emotions that are happening, because the reality is that it's typically not always or never. Like sometimes it is, and it's important to like look at that. And at the same time, when you get lost in that whirlwind, it is not always extremely helpful. So in summary, we want to watch out for getting sucked into an emotional whirlpool. And that brings me to the other part of this that I want to speak about, which is that this new moon is opposite Saturn. So this is exact. So it's 28 degrees of the new moon and then 28 degrees that Saturn is at Capricorn. So what does this mean? Saturn can bring gifts, and Saturn can bring challenges, or it can symbolize these things. So Saturn is a symbol of devotion, of working at something over a long period of time, being persistent, being practical, adulting, doing the things that we know need to be done despite setbacks, despite not feeling successful. The irony with Saturn is that the more that you do things, even though you're not getting that immediate gratification, that's when you actually start to see success over time. And so I think for that reason, there's two different, there's a few different possibilities as to how we can be feeling with this, because we want to keep in mind this is not just a new moon opposite Saturn, this is also the sun opposite Saturn. So Sun is our sense of willpower and ego. And when Sun and Saturn are an aspect to one another, it can challenge our sense of self. It can say, hey, like, who are you and what are you doing? And are you following a path that honors your sense of self and that is responsible and practical, for lack of a better way of putting it. Hi, Flower Healer. Hi, Cat Portal. Hi, Lotus Love. Hi, Kelsey. Good to have you all here. So the upside of this is that Saturn can be an excellent foundation. So when we tune into that energy and we're like, okay, what is the Saturn energy in my life right now? So for you, this week, like setting this tone, and I think that this new moon, it has this tone of Saturn being, I'm getting I've been to the beach a lot lately, so I'm getting the image of like a boogie board and a person on a boogie board. I feel like Saturn is the boogie board if you're wanting to move forward with things. So Saturn is that tangible thing, and it can hit you in the head. It can also allow you to propel forward very quickly when you use it in a certain manner. So I would ask, what is it in your life that, like, what is it that you're working on, and where do you know that you need to do something, or to be more, to plan, or to be consistent, or to like just sit down and do something? That's what I would ask you. Like, what are what are like the adulting decisions that you need to make at this time? And maybe that's not clear. So maybe your being practical is like trying things and doing some investigative work and some actual experimentation. And I think a part of Saturn too is, especially new moon opposite Saturn, is not being afraid to go out and try things, because you can only make so much progress by planning and imagining and visualizing. At some point you need to go out into the world and do. So, all right, so that is this new moon. And then also, side note, a dear astrology friend of mine and I, Latoya of Emerald Astrology, will be doing a moon talk on Monday the 20th, specifically about the new moon and going into more detail and answering questions. We'll be doing that on Zoom. I'll have more information, and it's a free talk, so it's like a free community talk, and I'm really excited about it. You can find out more information on my Instagram page. I'll be posting the Zoom link on Monday, and if you're on my email newsletter list, you would have already gotten that, and you'll get it again on Monday. So let's see. All right, so next, let's talk about the sun changing signs. I've been thoroughly enjoying Cancer season. I know we've had Mercury retrograde and everything in there, but I've been really enjoying it. It's felt like kind of a slower pace emotionally. So that is about to change, because the sun will be moving into the sign of Leo this week. So this change is happening, let me get the date for you, the 22nd, so Wednesday. I think even if you're on Australia, it's happening on Wednesday, because it's happening in the early morning hours, about 1:36 in the morning. So it's always interesting to me when we have a new moon or even a full moon towards the later degrees of a sign, and then the sun quite quickly changes into a new sign after that. So it's kind of like this interesting shift that happens. So the sun is a symbol of our will and our ego, right? But it's also kind of like a spotlight collectively. So there's like this feeling in the air. And when the sun moves into Leo, it moves from a cardinal water sign to a fixed, I was going to say air, a fixed fire sign. So there's like a lot of oomph and a lot of excitement and a lot of passion that comes with this change. Now, I'm excited about this too, because this means that the sun will no longer be opposite Saturn. So Saturn is in Capricorn, later degrees. And so even when we look at whole signs too, not just by degree. So the whole time that the sun has been in Cancer, it's been opposite Saturn, which can create, like we talked about, more of a focus around responsibility and diligence, and really making sure that you're doing things that are, I want to say the word honorable, but also just that it's like things are practical, things are tangible. And I think that if we're slacking off at all, for lack of a better term, then it's more difficult. Like, those things don't usually slide by when the sun and Saturn are in aspect. There's usually a call to action. So I think that's helpful energy. It can also be kind of overwhelming for people that already have so much going on their plate. So sun moving into Leo means that sun will no longer be making this aspect to Saturn. But the sun will be squaring Uranus by whole sign. So that's something that I'll talk about more in the next couple of weeks once it gets a little bit closer. So this is like a big change in energy. Sun, Saturn, responsibility. Sun, Uranus is about change and revolution, dramatic change in structures, and the unexpected also. So we'll talk more about that in the next couple of weeks once it gets a little bit closer. But definitely a change in the feeling energy from Cancer to Leo with the sun moving, changing those signs. Hi Becky, hi Moon. All right, so one more aspect to go over, and then I'll give you all some tips for this week. And if you have questions, leave them in the comment or the chat, and I will answer those. So the third aspect that's happening this week is Mercury will sextile Uranus. So when we have Mercury and Uranus together, this is a quick mind. This is inspiration that comes very instantaneously, kind of like out of nowhere. It's like a light bulb or a lightning bolt. And Mercury is still in the sign of Cancer, and it's still moving slowly because it's freshly out of its retrograde phase, station, period. So this is a more subtle aspect. A sextile typically shows where there's an opportunity for you if you do something to initiate that opportunity. So I would say for this, an excellent time to reach out to someone, to learn something new, to seek new information. Like, that's the biggest thing with this aspect, Mercury sextile Uranus, is to seek new information, and you may be surprised at what you find. I think that this whole week, there's a lot of emphasis around putting yourself out there and taking emotional risks. I think that might have been in the mix last week as well. But this week especially, because we have new moon, so we're in the waxing phase of the moon, which is about moving forward through the whole week and taking action, putting yourself out there. Sun moving into the sign of Leo. Leo is very expressive and passionate, and then Mercury with Uranus. This is about new information or new ideas when you take the steps to seek them out. Now, the other piece of this is that Mercury is moving towards a square with Mars. So this is a sign of, or a symbol of, can be either agitation or passion, especially around words. So, just something to be aware of. That aspect, Mercury square Mars, has been in effect the whole entire Mercury retrograde period. So Mercury has made this aspect once before, and now it's coming back toward it once it's now that it's direct. Okay. So how to use all of this energy, right? So tip number one is to persevere. So I say that because whenever we have Saturn aspects, it can be a little more challenging. People, I find, tend to be a little harder on themselves and to feel like they're not doing enough. When we have this via transit, I see that coming up as like a general theme. And people that have this in their birth chart that have Sun Saturn, they're working with that energy their entire life of, how do I feel like enough, like what I'm doing is enough. And so I want you to remember to persevere, because this is just a moment in time, and you can do this. You totally got this. Tip number two is to be responsible. So also Saturn, be responsible. I'm thinking, when I was looking at this week, I was thinking of this as kind of like a final push kind of energy, where the sun is making that opposition to Saturn the very last degrees, the very last time for quite some time, till next Cancer season, or no, I guess it'll be till next Leo season. And then we have this like exclamation point of a new moon opposite Saturn. So be responsible, like do, not that, still have fun, of course, but if there's something that you need to do that you know that is like you've been procrastinating against, do it. Tip number three, of course, and then play. Have some fun this week, lighten things up. So I think that's a part of this working with Saturn, and especially like welcoming the Leo period, the Sun in Leo period, is to also balance work with play. And I think that is so important right now, because when we're stressed, when we're in this time period that we're in right now, it can be straining on your psyche, on your soul, on your nervous system, like all systems, right? So I was looking up this week how to calm your nervous system, and one of the first tips was to have fun. So I recommend that you do that. All right, so I'm going to pull a card for you all, and I'm realizing that I'm trying to like keep these quick, but it's just not quick all the time. It's a lot I have to say, I guess. All right, so if you have a specific question, you can ask that. Otherwise, this is just guidance for you for this week. If you have a question for me, you can leave it in the chat. And if you're interested in working more with the lunar cycles, I've been doing regular moon classes on this. So you can find out more about those on my website, Shauna McGrath Astrology. Okay. Ooh. Okay, so I pulled the Eight of Swords. So this is a tarot deck that I'm using. I'm using the planets and the signs. There's like a specific technique, the Golden Dawn technique, with this. So this is a symbol of bondage, and it's also a symbol of Jupiter. I've written here Jupiter in Gemini. So I want you just to notice what first comes up when you look at this card. In the Rider-Waite, I know that some of you know that this card is about self-restriction, where a person feels like they're stuck, but they're really not. It's more, the hindrances are more in the mind than anything else. And I think that right now it's really important to look at these and to see what is a real restriction and what is something that is more psychological. Because there are, like as we're seeing now, there are some restrictions and hindrances that people have that, based on your upbringing and the group that you're classed into and this kind of thing. And so those are legitimate restrictions. But this is an encouragement to see like what is actually happening here and where you're blocking, or what do I want to say here? Where you're blind to something, because she has the blindfold on. As far as interpreting this for Jupiter and Gemini is in its detriment, because Jupiter is about expansion and Gemini is about like looking at little different, like kind of like hopping around to little different things and focusing in more than looking at the big picture. So I would wonder, where are you focused on expansion and growth? And how is that balanced out with looking at the little details of things? So that's what I think. Feel free to let me know how you would interpret this card. Let's see. And Jeffrey has a question. Any advice for someone with their natal sun, 28 degrees Capricorn in the 5th house? That is a very specific question. So on these, I don't do individual chart interpretations because I need to look at your entire chart in order to give you an accurate interpretation. But that being said, I'll see if I can, let's see if I can answer that in a way that's helpful. So let's see. When you say any advice, I would like, the other thing too, okay, so this is a little bit of a side tangent and then we'll go. The other thing is that when a person says, okay, like what does this transit mean for me? The reason why I don't do chart interpretations on like via this, like unless I'm actually sitting down with you and looking at your chart, whether that's in a class that I'm leading or in a one-on-one session, is that I need to know the context of your life and what's happening for you right now, even if that's just a little tidbit, because we can do these general forecasts, but at the end of the day, it really depends on what is happening for you now and where you're at right now, like what is happening in your life, and then we lay the astrology onto that. So when I'm doing these videos, I'm in essence relying on you to do that for yourself. I share the astrology information and then you can lay that onto your life based on, you having an awareness of your life and sitting with it and meditating on the information. So I think that's important to keep in mind just when whether you're watching this video or you're reading your horoscope or, any kind of other astrological information, is that what is the context of your life and what is your upbringing, your background, your socioeconomic status, your cultural context, your emotional health and well-being at this time, the situations and circumstances that you find yourself in now. Like those are essential to interpreting what's happening within your astrology chart, because someone that has their natal sun 28 degrees Capricorn in the 5th house, like people are going to experience that in many different ways depending on their life stage, etc., etc. Now that being said, if you with your natal sun being, let's see. That being said, I would look at, Jeffrey, as far as like interpreting this, I would look at, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. So Jeffrey, that means that you're a Virgo rising. So we would look at this new moon being in the 11th house for you. So that's something that you can Google and look up. For those of you that are interested in following this kind of thing, I do offer new moon classes every single month. If you're watching this on Friday, I think I still have a couple spots left for my new moon class tonight. But that is something where we work through how to work with the transits of the new moon and the lunation within your personal birth chart, so that we can lay it on to making sense for you, and then I can do like a little personal reading for each person in the class. So you can find out more about that on my website, shaunamcgrath.astrology.com. I'm wishing you a week filled with safety and comfort and health, and if there's anything that I can do to support you via a reading or a class with me, I would love to connect with you. Sending you lots of love, and I'll talk to you soon.